live stream chat. I'm on YouTube. I don't see anything yet.
I'm live too on both Facebook pages. In fact, I should probably go over there and make sure I don't have an echo.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because the mic that I typically use is not connected for some reason. So I'm going through like my Mac, which is not good. But it says I can't change it while we're recording, while we're live.
I don't see that we're live.
No?
I don't either. Oh, wait, welcome to our live show. Here we go. We're here.
Oh, you can see it?
Yep.
How come I can't?
I'm checking Facebook. Oh, yeah, I'm live on Facebook. Okay. There we go. I got to make sure I don't have an echo. I'm checking Facebook.
I can hear
Yeah,
it.
I heard the echo.
No, I don't hear an echo. Oh, yeah, I'm live on Facebook. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm live on Facebook.
It's a couple seconds behind.
Yeah, that's why you got to mute it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
I got it. I'm pretty sure. Hey, Doreen. Doreen, you don't hear an echo, do you? Want to make sure that I didn't hear it when I went on, so. Should we sing?
No, we definitely shouldn't. Sing?
Chris, it says Chris is echoing. Okay.
I'm echoing?
Chris is echoing. Yeah.
I have my echo off. So
No, I think it's on my end whenever it goes live like that. I had fixed the setting before.
yeah, because I have the echo cancellation on. So
All right, cool. I see Michelle in chat. Good. Everything's working the way it should be.
Wait.
I can still hear Michelle,
Yeah, I
though.
can still hear. Bear with us, everybody, as we do what it is we do for our first few minutes, because as technologically savvy as we are as Gen Xers, yeah, sometimes this happens. So bear with us.
Yeah, I'm trying to sit there and figure out, like, why do I have an echo? Okay, I'm gonna mute this tab. Mute site. Unmute. Okay, I'm gonna mute this tab. I'm looking on. Chris, say something.
Say something.
Say something. Something. Something.
Something.
Something. I can still hear it.
Chris, say something.
No rapper can rap quite like I can. I take a muscle-bound man and put his face in the sand. Not the last mafioso. I'm an MC cop. Make you say go LL and do the WAP.
Rochelle, can you just turn that down so we don't hear it?
Please.
Pretty please. Chris, is this louder?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I think I got the problem solved. Okay.
What were you doing, Rochelle?
Now I can't hear you. Son of a.
Are you serious?
She turned the volume off.
Oh, she turned the volume off on the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm ending. Listen, I'm ending the live stream on here until I figure this out. Doreen, go to YouTube and pick it up on YouTube, because for whatever reason, I don't know if I could solve the echo problem.
Just put a note on your Facebook page, Shell, letting anybody know if they're coming there for the live stream to go to YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, see, it does a thing. It does a thing.
Yeah. Well, we've got Michelle sitting in live chat. I see Chris in live chat. And the good thing is I can even push their comments onto our recordings now. So I got that all working. So when people, those of you who are in chat, when you mention something, there is a very good chance your words can show up in the podcast now.
Oh, where can we see that? That's cool.
Right on the screen. Like your Hey Michelle, if you look at the screen, you should see it across the front. No?
Oh, it'll pop up on the left-hand side?
Yep. It says who
Okay.
talked, when they said it, and what they said.
Okay, cool.
Let us know when you're ready, Shell.
I'm trying to put a note up there.
Unless you guys want me to rap some more.
Do it.
You see my latest acquisition next to the Mad Dog? Can you make it out? First of all, do you see Chris Clue's book is there? Right there.
I see it. Yep. It's just blurry.
Right up there.
It's blurry, so it's hard for me to.
1 liter bottle of Everclear.
Woo!
I may be mixing it with Mad Dog 2020 and taking a shot.
Oh, good luck.
Wow. That'd be healthy.
There she is. Welcome to the YouTube, Doreen.
Hi, Doreen.
Give you a message for anybody else.
You know, I was up here and prepared earlier, and then now it's like I can't. All right.
Oh, that's a good one, Michelle. I got to put I'm going to have to add as a sound anything you can say, Canon, will be used. The Law and Order, dun dun, as a media sound.
Why can't I see their? Oh, here we go. Got it.
Okay.
Do you know where to look in chat? If you go on the right-hand side, Chris, and hit chat, it's inside 3 view now. You don't have to be outside of it anymore.
Yep. It's awesome. That's huge.
So they are chatting over on YouTube, but I've connected it so we can see it here.
All right.
All right. We're good?
We're good.
I don't have to do any more LL Cool J. We can get started?
No.
We can get started.
All right.
Hello and welcome to the 3 View Mirror podcast. Once again, going live before a live studio audience. The place where you can weekly come and chat with us and take part in the filming of our show, where we come up with 3 topics, harking back to the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the Gen X era of pop culture. And every week, one of us takes over the duties, I said duty, being a host. And that host has those 3 topics known only to them. And they also know only to them what serious mystery connection there is between those 3 connections. So the deal is, again, a host gives you 3 topics, and the host knows something connects those 3 topics. And it's our job as co-hosts and audience sitting at home to figure it out by the end of the broadcast. And today's host is none other than Rochelle Oblak.
Hey, everybody. Don, are you playing our intro?
I am playing our intro. I just needed Chris to introduce himself as well.
Oh, Chris Clues, better known as Chris Clues.
And I am Gen X John Katrides, and this is the 3 View Mirror podcast.
Yeah.
And just once is enough.
We liked it so much, we want to do it twice.
No, I don't. Get away.
Get out.
Hold on. Okay. All right. Still figuring that out a little bit, but pretty cool. All right, Rochelle, I'll hand it over to you to let us know what we're doing today.
Okay. I have 3 I think are wonderful topics. I think we'll have a lot to say about them. Are you ready?
Ready?
We are going to talk about natural born killers, Santa Claus, and Mean Joe Green. And somehow all 3 of these topics are related. And it is up to our studio audience to figure out how they are related without quite giving it away, too early. We're going to talk about natural born killers first. Any thoughts, first of all, on all 3 topics?
I love Santa Claus.
I love Santa Claus.
Santa Claus is awesome.
And I'm kind of fond of Natural Born Killers, the movie, not the genre, not the thing, not the people.
Yeah.
Well, the people in the movie, but not like real Natural Born Killers. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
and Mean Joe Green, dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
Now,
Man was an icon.
I asked the floating voice to come in at some point because he has a lot to say about Mean Joe Green. So he'll
Pittsburgh,
be in
I would
here.
figure.
Not
I'm a
surprised
Pittsburgh
you figured out
girl
where
for
to put
anybody that doesn't know.
You put a Steeler in, not surprised.
Well, he told me I don't know where the Mean Joe Green jersey is. He told me I should be wearing the Mean Joe Green jersey for today, but I don't know.
At least have a Pepsi in front of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it Pepsi or Coke? Anyway, we'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna, any other thoughts before we start?
No, I'm ready to go.
Let's do it.
So what are we starting with?
Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers. Personal, I absolutely adore that movie. I thought the acting was superb. I thought the premise was insane. And to me, and the soundtracks, Chris is always talking about soundtracks. The soundtrack to that movie, it was one of my favorite soundtracks of all time.
Chris?
Yeah, I've never heard anybody put the word adore with a movie that's about just absolute mayhem and disaster and blood and guts and killers. But I actually love this movie too. And on a number of levels, it was kind of like a modern day Bonnie and Clyde, I suppose, in some ways. And it was, Oliver Stone, when he was just, everything he was putting out there was just killing it. No pun intended. So I'm a big fan. And it was Woody Harrelson's move, I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but from being, kind of the goofy guy on Cheers, which he was awesome at, by the way, to then this really totally different character.
I mean, this definitely is where he put to bed any stereotyped typecasting that might have followed him off of Cheers, because it would be easy for that to happen. Even when he did White Men Can't Jump, it still was the goofy character, and this just finally was like, all right, I'm done with that. And it opened the door for him to play like Larry Flint and any number of things further on down the road. It absolutely ended the Woody Harrelson as Woody Boyd typecasting.
Yeah. And to me, the movie was just like art in so many ways. And, some of the, I can remember hearing about when she left her scarf on that bridge and it started going down over the bridge. They had filmed that something like, 100 times until they got that scarf flying down through the air, in just the right way. I think that they were very picky, very specific about every single thing that they put in that movie. And to me, it was art.
And if I recall correctly, there were quite a few cameos in that movie. Oddly enough, one that I remember is Edie McClurg.
Yes.
Grace from, and also from Planes, Trains, Automobiles, because she's so awesome. I mean, she always had these, I don't know. To me, whenever she was in a scene, whatever movie it was, she just owned it. Didn't matter who she was talking to.
I mean, looking at the cast, shit. I had to just look it up because I remembered there being so many people. Obviously, Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis.
Yeah.
They were front and center. But Robert Downey Jr., Tommy Lee Jones, Rodney Dangerfield. Why do I not remember Rodney Dangerfield?
He had one of what I consider to be one of the beyond the killers. Okay, beyond Woody, and Juliette Lewis. He was the father of Juliette Lewis, who was the abuser, and what caused her to set the house on fire. And, she set her mother on fire and then she set the whole house on fire, but he was the abuser. And it was a very, very, and you think of Rodney Dangerfield too, as a very comedic actor. And it was a dark, dark place for him in that movie.
Yeah. And I think, well, sorry, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, in the movie itself, like the whole darkness, Oliver Stone, you nailed it, Chris. I mean, he was doing nothing wrong then. There was that entire period from the late 80s through the 90s with JFK, and anything he put his name on it really got recognized and really got pushed out there. And the media picked this up because it was just on the face of it, the subject matter from the title and the casting and who they were. You know, there was a lot of fanfare around this, a lot of it good and a lot of it somewhat problematic because they're like, I don't know, is this, you know, there's the question of, is this movie okay? Is this, you know, is this something that should be entertainment? And people were having that discussion, and, you know, they rolled with it because it definitely gave the movie a lot of free publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. I do remember there was a big conversation around the movie, and I don't remember if it was because they were trying to decide between rated R and actually giving it like an NC-17, which would have just at the time would have killed it. I can't actually remember, but I am fascinated by the cast, and in the sense that only Tommy Lee Jones, in my opinion, at that time was somebody that you would expect to be cast in this type of movie. Everyone else was playing characters, these dark characters, or at least in a movie that was very dark, that wasn't really what they typically did. Rodney Dangerfield, Edie McClurg, Woody Harrelson, Juliette Lewis. I mean, there were a lot of risks, I think, that were taken with the casting.
Well, Juliette Lewis, I mean, I don't know what you say about her. People either love her or hate her. You do. So Rochelle's on the love side. Chris?
We're exactly the same age. Like, we share like a birthday, and I just love her. I loved her ever since when she was the young girl, the Rear View Mirror, when they redid Rear View Mirror. What was the name?
Oh, Cape Fear? Cape Fear?
Cape Fear, yes. Well,
Yeah, Cape Fear.
I fell in love with her from Cape Fear. I thought she was fantastic.
I started hating her all the way back to Cape Fear.
Oh.
I don't know what it is about her. And every role she's played just seems to build on the annoyance factor for me. She did a thing with Ryan Phillippe, a TV movie, which ironically is part of the reason we're living here in Charlotte. My wife and I saw that entire series, and it was really well done. She played the cop. And I don't think you were supposed to hate her in the role, but we hated her in the role. But we loved Charlotte because it was based in Charlotte. And we're like, wouldn't it be neat to live there? And so when we started looking for places to move to, we're like, well, let's go check it out. And here we are.
Oh.
Well, you hate Beavis and Butthead, and you like beaches. So you can, you're.
So you like Juliette Lewis?
I do.
Well, okay. Oh, go ahead,
Did
Shel.
anybody see Yellow Jackets?
Yes.
I loved Yellow Jackets. I thought she did a fantastic job in Yellow Jackets. And if nobody has seen that series, I go watch it. It's pretty good.
Well, somebody mentioned that they were fighting about, when I said NC-17 not rated, which would have been even worse. Somebody said in the chat that would have been done because they didn't have streaming back then. Where do you go from there? You end up, in some seedy theaters, and then, maybe. Yeah, I loved her in Christmas Vacation. I was about to mention that, actually. Yeah. Audrey in Christmas Vacation, along with Johnny Galecki, playing Rusty, who went on The Big Bang Theory. They were perfect, and they both went on to. I like Juliette Lewis because I like anybody who has a big name like that will take these tiny, silly little roles and own it, like in Old School. She had this tiny little role, right at the beginning of the movie. It's hilarious when Luke Wilson comes back and she's having the gangbang, like the guys. He's like, these two people come out of the closet, getting ready to gangbang your wife or girlfriend or whatever. She had that little scene, but she absolutely owned it, and she was willing to do. Even at that was 2003, she was still doing a lot. Yeah. And she's like, oh, this looks like fun. I always like actors and actresses that have big names that are willing to do silly roles like that.
Yeah. I think she's fantastic. And, back to, and Woody Harrelson and the breakout roles, and, Robert Downey Jr. And one of the themes I felt that was really neat throughout Natural Born Killers was the idea that the spirit to kill someone was almost catchy, and that Juliette Lewis caught it from forgive me for not, I love the movie, but I can't remember their names in the movie at the moment, but the Juliette Lewis caught it from Woody Harrelson, and then Robert Downey Jr. caught the bug, like, I'm good, I'm going to kill, but he wasn't a natural born killer, whereas the other two were. And there was a lot of hidden themes, I think, in that movie.
Mickey and Mallory,
that's right. Mallory, yes. Yeah. Yes. As soon as you say it, I'm like, yep, Mickey and Mallory. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it just picked up on, like, and God, could you imagine if they made the movie today? Because then it picked up on the trash TV, like how media was portrayed in like the real Robert Downey, not Robert Downey Jr., it would have been the TV shows of the day. What am I trying to think of? Morton Downey. I got confused with Robert Downey Jr., but Morton Downey TV show. And that's how the media was then. Sensationalistic media really took off during that time. And to Chris's point, yes, they were the modern day Bonnie and Clyde, because they were the anti-heroes. They killed like 52 people. I read. I just wanted to see how prolific they were in killing, and yet they were sensationalized in the media. Today, if they made this movie, they would be live streaming their murders. They'd be going on Facebook Live or YouTube Live or some aspect of it. And I'm surprised they haven't made it yet, because this movie is one that I think could be remade today, and its message would be that much more powerful.
Yeah.
And also, I think there were some elements of, if you know the book In Cold Blood, Truman Capote. And so there have been discussions about Oliver Stone using a little bit of that as some of his influence as well. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie's a little bit older, but In Cold Blood, it's a true story about a terrifying murder, or murders, I should say. And I remember that there was discussion around that as well at the time.
I thought one of the fascinating parts about that movie was that in the end, you were cheering for the killers.
Yeah.
Because most of their quote unquote murders were portrayed as being justified in some way by some guy in a diner who's being an absolute pig, to her father, to her mother who turned a blind eye. All of these things seemed like they were justified. And we ended up rooting at the end for these killers. And, and Robert Downey Jr. cheered for them as well.
Well, you did say you adored them. So, I mean, that's,
So what year was this?
1994.
And what year was Bernie Getz? Is that his name, right?
80s.
Subway?
Early 80s, I think.
No. Okay. Because I'm like, there was a period of time when vigilantism was very much in the news as well. And maybe it was delayed. So if that was in the 80s and then it jumped to production and pre-production, I wonder how much of that takes off from there. But that was definitely a thing as well. I mean, if you think about it, the superheroes we grew up with, Superman was bright primary colors, red and blue, but Batman was dark and was very much a vigilante. And even Spider-Man was, taking the media was going after him in the comic books at the time as being a vigilante, taking the law into their own hands. And we cheered for them. This took it to the next probable level.
Yeah, and there's been, I mean, you could go back before Natural Born Killers, where there were we were rooting for the person who was creating the mayhem, because we felt that the mayhem was justified. The question, of course, that people were posing was, was Natural Born Killers, was it going too far? Were some of these people caught up in it and not justified? And it opened up that conversation, that question. I think that's what Oliver Stone was doing. I don't think he was just doing mayhem for the sake of mayhem. I mean, he always seems to have a point to whatever story he's telling. And I go back to even like Rambo, the original Rambo. He just wants to be left alone, and they won't leave him alone. And then we, in our mind's eye, we can justify all of the things that he's doing to law enforcement, which, people hold in high regard. I mean, some people do, some people don't. But when you show law enforcement in the way that they showed him in Rambo, we're rooting for him, because we're like, all he wanted to do was be left alone, and they wouldn't leave him alone. So now he's bringing it to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Oliver Stone always made you question things at the end. And, to put it kind of bluntly, and Mickey and Mallory ride off into the sunset. Leonard Cohen's playing in the background. They ride off into the sunset in their RV. She's pregnant, and then it started making you question that they live among us, that these people who have these natural instincts to kill or to make other people, do the vigilantism, that they live among us, and you might not ever know who they are if they've hung up their murderous hat, so to speak.
They hang up their Batman suit.
Well, that's it. They put away their cape.
Yeah.
And that's where it diverges from Bonnie and Clyde, because things didn't end so well for them.
Right.
Even Thelma and Louise, which we talked about, I think last week,
Mhm.
had their run-ins with the law as a duo that ran afoul of the law, and it didn't end well for them. So this maybe gave us the ending we wanted. I mean, if we were rooting for them throughout the movie, maybe it was kind of, as long as they promised to stop killing and, okay, it's done. They did what they needed to do. Let's let them get away with it.
And I think it was at a very impressionable time in my life too, that I graduated in 91. So 94, I was just a young adult. And it wasn't that I identified with obviously with the killing bar, like you said, John, but I identified with the, finding out who you are in a way, in a very sick and dark way. They were finding out who they were as people. And we went along on their journey in this movie. And it just captivated me, like I said, with the artistry and the storyline.
I didn't realize it was written by Quentin Tarantino either.
Yes.
It makes
Yes.
sense.
That does make sense.
Wait,
But
and soundtrack.
Yeah.
Guess who did the soundtrack? Because I told you it was one of the best soundtracks. I could listen to that one because it had such a range of songs.
Who did it?
Trent Reznor.
Oh, well, okay. That would
Yeah.
make perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense
I mean-
of why too the soundtrack is dark, and yet then they have songs like "Back in Baby's Arms," from the 50s or whenever that
Yeah.
song was. It hit and mixed things to make it almost creepy.
Well, that's a Tarantino influence. I guarantee on
Yes.
the soundtrack that he was the one who threw those innocent kind of 50s songs in there and made them not so innocent anymore.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he did the same thing in Reservoir Dogs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you. And I'll never look at that song the same after watching Reservoir Dogs and that scene that song is in. It just changed it for everything. I do want to mention, though, I think the other reason that it was so shocking, the movie, when it came out, and why there was so much controversy is, we've talked about this before too, that oftentimes pop culture reflects the time and how we're feeling as a society, as a country, as a world. And that was at a moment, 1994, where there are always things going on in the world. But if you were to say, like, what's the meter of craziness versus kind of peace, we were at a pretty decent time then. So the pop culture had been reflecting that. And then suddenly this movie comes out that just says, nope, I'm going to throw it on its head. Where there are times, and I would say better times, where if that movie came out, it would have been absolutely reflecting the craziness of the time and how we were feeling about ourselves in the world.
And are we at 15 minutes here? I think we are.
I think we definitely are.
I think we're definitely there. Any last thoughts, favorite scene, anything about Natural Born Killers?
I would just say I'm glad you brought it up, because I had forgotten about it, and now I want to go watch it again.
Me too.
It just felt like there were movies in that era. Like it maybe not reflective of anything other than just the way they feel to me, and maybe it's just me, but it's like Californication.
Mhm.
There's just these movies that came out then that were almost like film noir again. So it was a genre that we didn't really see for a while. Throughout the mid 80s, John Hughes took over. Everything was a little different. And then all of a sudden, here comes Quentin Tarantino and Oliver Stone, and kind of brings back that film noir feeling where it was just darkness. And I mean, I was there for it. It was good.
Yeah.
Good thoughts, John. So, all right. So we talked about Natural Born Killers. Our other two topics are Santa Claus and Mean Joe Green. So we're going to move on, segment 2, to
Mean Joe Green?
Claus.
Santa Claus?
Santa Claus.
We'd end with Santa.
Complete opposite.
Oh,
Unless
okay. All right. We'll talk about Mean Joe Green first. It matters not the order that we do these things in. So, Mean Joe Green.
It's for me, it's the Coke commercial. My brother was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. At the time, we all rooted for the Bills, but they were going nowhere. So by the playoffs, you had to pick a different team to root for. In that era, I was Roger Staubach and the Dallas Cowboys by default, because my brother had already taken the Steelers. And if you knew anything about brothers at the time, you weren't allowed to like the same team. You couldn't both root, because there had to be a winner and a loser. So the older brother got to pick first, and he picked Terry Bradshaw, and he picked the Steelers, who went on to win Super Bowl after Super Bowl, and I got stuck with the Dallas Cowboys because that was just what I was allowed to have. But
Oh,
I
you
just
lied. It was the cheerleaders.
that was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Now, you make a solid point there. But for me, Mean Joe Green was, hey, kid, and tossing the jersey, the smelly, disgusting, sweaty jersey at the kid. And the kid's like, thanks, Mean Joe Green.
Yeah.
Or thanks, Mean Joe. I'd have to
Mean
look at it. I
Joe,
think the
yeah.
word mean was there.
Mean Joe. Thanks, Mean Joe. I think.
Yeah, I think I said mean. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I have great memories of Mean Joe Green and the Steelers at the time because I grew up in Baltimore. And so for those that are a little younger that don't know, the Colts were originally the Baltimore Colts. And at the time, the Baltimore Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers were rivals, as they still are today, although we're the Ravens now, who were the Browns. It gets very complicated. But at the time, we were the Baltimore Colts. And so that Colts-Steelers rivalry was a real thing, Baltimore and Pittsburgh being markets that were close to each other. So I knew the names of the Steelers players as well as I knew the names of the Colts players just because of that. And I had a buddy around the corner who, for some reason, I don't know why, but he was born in Baltimore, but he was a Steelers fan, maybe because of his dad. And I remember us playing in his backyard, one-on-one football. And I'd be the Colts and he'd be the Steelers, and we would take different players. So I have very fond memories of that entire team in the 70s and 70s and early 80s. Before our team was taken from us.
Well, I don't, and the Steelers, in the 70s, the Steel Curtain, there was at the time no one else like them. That I think my husband said, because I'm not the football statistician here, but it was 4 out of 6 years they won the Super Bowl, and that they had the most Pro Bowl players ever picked from one team to go into the Pro Bowl. And then he said something else, like the number of people that went on into the Football Hall of Fame was like a phenomenal number. You had the Mel Blount and the Dwight White, and who else did he? And I'm just trying to think of all of them. Like he is floating head, should be the respective person. He should be up here right now talking about this for me. But they were. Most people had their eyes on the Steelers in the 70s because you couldn't take your eyes off of them.
They were so later, beforehand in the 60s, you had Joe Namath and the New York Jets. And Joe Namath showed up on the Brady Bunch because Bobby said that, I think Peter said that Bobby was dying so that Bobby could meet Joe Namath. I can't believe I remember that plot line. So there was that, but that was Joe Namath. I don't remember as a young kid being captivated by the entire team. Steelers came along and may have been like the prototype for the 1985 Bears. It wasn't just Terry Bradshaw. It was Mean Joe Green. It was Lynn Swann.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I remember, what's it? Yeah,
it's Lambert, no teeth.
Yep. So they really, as a team, became celebrities and became part of pop culture at the time. And it transcended the sporting arena in that people that didn't follow sports still knew who they were.
Yep. Yeah, they were definitely, I know we could get into this conversation and have discussions about America's team being the Cowboys, which I think is horse shit. But I will say this, that the Steelers were America's team. And to John's point, they had these big personalities that no matter what market you were in, there were guys that transcended markets. You mentioned Joe Namath, Johnny Unitas. There were guys, but
individuals.
Steelers, Mean Joe Green, Jack Ham, Jack Lambert, Donnie Shell on offense, Franco Harris, Rocky Bleier, John Stallworth. These were names that everybody knew and everybody respected, regardless of what you thought about the market or what have you. I just, Rocky Bleier had a great backstory with being a Vietnam vet and then coming into the NFL, and Franco Harris being this incredible larger.
Well, you had the Immaculate Conception, the Immaculate Reception. Yeah, Immaculate Reception. I misspoke, so sue me. Although I got it, I'm sure more than one of the players on that team, when they found out someone was pregnant that shouldn't have been, they're like, not mine, baby. That was Immaculate Conception. That said, Steel Curtain. These were just words that came into everyday vernacular. And listen, I always joke and say at that point in my life, in my development, I was more likely to win a history bowl than I was a Super Bowl. I was an academic dork, and even I knew these names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I was a young girl in the 70s who was like, oh God, dad's watching football again, and even I knew and would sneak around the corner. I'd be like, well, that's actually kind of interesting. And I picked up all of those names. I mean, who didn't know who Terry Bradshaw was at that point in time, or Mean Joe Green
and then Mean Joe Green got the Coke commercial, though. Let's talk about that for a second. It wasn't Terry Bradshaw. It wasn't Franco Harris. It wasn't Lynn Swan. It was Joe Green, and the guy nailed it. If you want to talk about Oscar caliber acting, if you want a master class, and I'm not kidding though, in acting at the commercial, even when he's not the primary focus, the guy's still on it from limping in. And it almost in that commercial is brilliant because it showed you a snapshot into this larger than life hero from that kid's eyes. This was a god on earth, okay? He was Mean Joe Green, unstoppable, enormous, this giant among men. And yet the commercial shows him limping in. And you could tell he's hurting. And it is a brilliant commercial that all these years later still sticks with me, that I can see his silhouette against the opening as he's coming in. It was amazing.
And I think my husband said he thinks it was it's considered to be the #1 sports commercial of all time. And I don't know if that's truly a fact, but I believe it.
I'd love to have that conversation and see because I think if I could be like Mike those two, I would say it's in the top 2 or 3, and you could argue it's #1, but for me, it would be
Mike, I think the Bo Jackson commercials, because you're taking these iconic names, right? And you're bringing them to the masses through marketing. And the marketing has to transcend the product. Now, I will say, that all 3 of those commercials, the Bo Jackson, the Be Like Mike, and the Mean Joe Green, they succeed in a way that you don't forget the product. A lot of times there'll be these amazing commercials and the product is lost in it. But they lifted up the product. I wanted to drink Coca-Cola. I wanted to wear Nike. I mean, the commercials worked.
Yeah, they absolutely did.
I would also say that 2 things. One is that Mean Joe Green, the name itself with the nickname, and if you're a big sports person like I am, and I know you guys are, and we know all these names, we watch all these sports, we consume a lot of that content. And we talked about this before with Prince and how few people are known around the world by one name. You really have to have done something to be known by one name. So he says the name, that's so-and-so. Well, Mean Joe Green is very similar in the sense that when we go throughout football history and you start thinking about the names that everybody knows, the ones that have gone through the decades and will be well after we're gone, there's a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame. But how many can you name? And who comes to mind? And when you say the name Mean Joe Green, it's just immediate. Even casual football fans know the name Mean Joe Green. And if you put 100 people in a room who were just casual fans and said, do you know the name Mean Joe Green? I'm sure some might not, but I would imagine that it would be one of the top 5 or 6 that they would know and at least be able to connect with. And part of it is because of the commercial. And the other part is because it's just a fantastic nickname.
Yeah.
And they brought the commercial back too. There was years later, I don't know if it was the 10-year anniversary, the 15-year anniversary, he and the boy and him and the boy reunited. And I think they might have even done a follow-up commercial. And if not commercial, okay. I mean, and that's pretty cool. Again, that's revisiting. Yeah. They did the same thing with Mikey and Life cereal, and it's never really as good as the original, but it's nice to revisit it. I will say that Jane in our chat room, I think it's Jane, it's Jne, so I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but in our live studio audience, they're reminding us about the other part of athletes and pop culture by mentioning Joe Namath and silk stockings, pantyhose.
Yeah, that's right.
Mean Joe was not going to wear pantyhose.
No. And can I just point out too that, Michelle said living in Texas, I can't stand Dallas, but she said it's her brother's favorite team. All I'm going to say for anybody out there who's listening who's a Dallas Cowboys fan, you can't be America's team if you've won 2 playoff games in 32 years. Sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Oh, I don't agree.
Oh, you
That's
got
not
you
right.
can't. The Steelers won 3 Super Bowls or 4 Super
No,
Bowls.
I get it, but I
Like,
mean,
that's America's team.
it's you can have the argument that it's based on Super Bowl records, but I think certain teams are beloved regardless. Sometimes it's because of their lack of a record that makes them beloved. But at any rate, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't really care.
Snoop Dogg that's like one of his, like Scott tells me all these people who are actually like hardcore Steelers fans, and he said that Snoop Dogg is actually a hardcore Steelers fan, which, you know,
Really?
yay Snoop Dogg. Yeah, that's
Really?
what he's yeah.
Well, wait a minute. It would make sense because he's Gen X, and so he would have grown up.
Yeah.
He would have been a kid when like me growing up in Baltimore, and you only got one game at 1 o'clock and one game at 4 o'clock, and maybe you got your market team. And then, but what team were they going to play? You got a lot of the Steelers because people wanted to see them.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, and you got to remember back then the blackout started to be a thing when I got to like high school. So by the way the bird flew, Bills games were blacked out if they didn't sell out. So even in local market, because the Bills sucked so horribly bad and their stadium never sold out, I think I saw more Steelers games in market than I got to see Buffalo Bills games.
Yeah. And that was the time of the terrible towel and
yeah,
you know, Myron Cope on Sports. And if you're from Pittsburgh and you've listened to those games, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, Michelle in the comments are John, I see that she said "and Smokey and the Bandit," and that is like ringing a bell for me. But I cannot picture it at the moment of how Mean Joe Green was in Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, I do, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Was it Smokey and the Bandit, or was it?
I thought it was Cannonball Run.
It was one of the Smokey and the Bandit movies.
Okay.
I don't remember if it was the first one or the second one. But yeah.
Smokey and the Bandit 2.
Okay.
Okay. And leave it to our audience, which is why I love doing this. Leave it to the audience to ring a bell that none of us even like, oh yeah, I do remember that, but it wasn't even.
Yeah.
Awesome. Credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Yeah, I love, you know, I just think it's going to go down in history as one of the great, I mean, he's one of the great all-time players, but one of the great all-time nicknames. I mean, I really think it's up there with, you know, Hammer and Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth and Mean Joe Green. And you think about these, you know, the Babe. If you say the Babe, people know. Hammer and Hank Aaron. I mean, there's just going to be no other. And I think Mean Joe Green, nobody else can take mean and put it in front of their name. It will not work, at least in football.
You know, and I can take Michelle's comment, actually, and it got me thinking, and we can build on it. Because she mentions like the commercial and Smokey and the Bandit or how she remembers Mean Joe Green. For a lot of us, it was the actual football games. But you know how we didn't remember them? You know how we didn't have access to our heroes? We didn't get to see them have a bad day and share it on social media. We didn't get to see an ugly tweet. We didn't get to see them broadcast through a leaked video or a leaked soundbite. Our heroes were heroes. Now, they may not have actually deserved the pedestal we put them on, but as kids, we didn't get to know that they didn't deserve it. And it was kind of neat growing up in an era where our heroes got to be heroic. And I'm not saying that that means they were perfect people or were even deserving of that hero status. But as a kid, it's really cool that we got to go through our childhood with these heroes, whether it was celebrities, whether it was pop stars or rock stars or television or movie stars or sports people like Mean Joe Green. We didn't see them get knocked off their pedestal. And I think that's really, really fucking cool. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. That's how I feel about it. That's stolen from kids today. Show me someone that you think is amazing. Give it 15 minutes, and I can find a reason online that'll show you they're not. And I don't think we need to know all that.
You know, John, I think that was probably a perfect transition here into the last segment, because in the last segment, we're going to talk about like a child's ultimate hero when they were younger. But I think you make an excellent point, because, and maybe that's why, like the Coke commercial, he was a hero in every aspect. He was a hero because he was mean. He was, you know, mean on the field or mean as a personality. and we didn't get to see behind that curtain, and I'm glad that we didn't. We only saw a glimpse of it in that commercial, and it made us all go, wow, maybe he really is not a mean guy somehow. So yeah.
Well, he said it himself. He didn't want to be remembered as mean because he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
That he wanted to be remembered as a good guy and a great player. But yeah,
he passed recently, right?
No, he's still around.
No, he's still alive.
Franco Harris did.
Franco died days, like 2 days before his, what was it, the 100th or not 100th year? Jesus, what am I thinking? 50th, couldn't be 100th. I know. What was it, the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception?
Yes, that's right.
He died days shy of that thing, and he was supposed to speak. His wife spoke in his place here in Pittsburgh, and
I mean, let me just add to John's before we move on, because you mentioned Franco Harris, and because we didn't have access to them like they do today, because we didn't see all this other nonsense that's going on, Franco Harris, to me, I thought he would live forever because he was immortal in my eyes. I only know him as the guy carrying the ball. I mean, I know he was a very successful business guy and apparently a great human being with a lot of charity and stuff. But my vision is him carrying that football and big and strong and fast. And to me, he was going to be immortal. He was never going to die. And we all, we start to face that our heroes, because I wonder if it's going to be different for the generation today, because they're so engaged in the lives. They see the details. They're not, to John's point, they're kind of not up on that pedestal. I don't know if that's good or bad, but for us, they felt immortal.
Well, and our heroes disappeared, right? So there was that time we remembered them young, and then because they weren't active on social media, even though it came to exist as they got older, they didn't jump to it. Whereas today, I think we get to see these people all the way through. Even after they're no longer famous, they have a voice, they have a social media outlet. The best example I can give you is Friends is still Friends, the topic we always talk about, on television in their prime. I can go downstairs right now and see them on TV in their prime. But at the same time, I can see Courtney Cox on a TikTok. I can see Lisa Kudrow. I can pop them up on YouTube. I can pull up their Facebook accounts. We see them age in real time. So many of the people I remember in my youth, in my mind, they're still there. Yeah. And then they die sometimes before I see an updated image of them. Or I'm stupid enough to decide to go, I wonder what Jim McMahon looks like today. And I go online and I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Well, and I love how both of you put this, because in transitioning to Santa Claus as our last topic, Santa Claus might be the biggest childhood hero, and then simultaneously your biggest childhood disappointment when you find out the truth. You know what I mean? No.
What's the truth?
When that he doesn't exist. Like.
What are you talking about?
What?
You're one of those people.
Under the tree for
I'm
me.
sorry, this is not going to go the direction you think it's going to go. I don't know about you, but the bell still rings for me.
Oh,
I know. Presents under the tree for me.
Santa's in here.
No. Santa's at the North Pole. Don't give me your hypothetical, imaginary, sweet bullshit. He's not in here. He's up there. I mean, this is not going to go. I'm not. No, Santa's real, and that's all there is to it. And you may go. You just may have canceled yourself, Rochelle.
I watch Elf. I watched Elf. He's real.
He's real.
Yeah, Papa Elf.
Now I'll talk about how I felt as a kid, and I'll talk about going to school and having those idiots that didn't believe and how they made fun of me and might have stuffed me in my locker and stuff as a result. But the word Santa's not real. It's not going to come out of my mouth.
Well, I see your point. There is there's live on in your heart for your whole life.
No, live on for real.
Why are you guys
You're entitled to your opinion. We can begin.
Okay, go on.
I mean, okay.
As bad as Chris got it for Principal Vernon, you are getting raked over the coals right now.
Santa Claus.
Chris, Chris, you're vindicated, my friend.
And now we have to. We definitely have to make sure on YouTube that this episode is not for kids.
Well, do the math, guys.
We could be the most hated YouTube channel in history.
Not us. Her for spreading her hate. Not us.
Shame.
Here's a taste of what you're getting in the comments, Rochelle.
I see it.
Shame.
So here's the thing, though. I'll begin the commentary by saying I remember being a kid in the 70s, and we only got a few gifts, especially when my parents were really just getting the diner started. There wasn't a ton of money. And Christmas isn't the biggest holiday overseas in Europe, at least not in Greece. Easter is. Christmas is his birthday. Okay, so that he was born. Yay, glad our Savior's born. We celebrate it. Easter is the resurrection of Christ when he ascends to heaven. That's the big one. So my parents were like, yeah, Christmas is nice, but we're not going. And I don't think any parents went into the kind of debt that they go into today.
Yeah.
Today, things hit credit cards in November, and they get paid off in November just in time to go back on again.
Yeah. Trampoline for Cabbage Patch dolls.
We might have only got 3 or 4 presents under the tree, and they were all from my parents. On the label from mom and dad gave them. And I remember saying, well, why didn't was I bad? Why didn't I? And my mom explained that no, Santa Claus is a lot of kids in the world, and my parents could afford to give us our presents, and they didn't need Santa to come by our house. So they told him to go to another house. Now, you may think that's a sweet lesson. No, my mom wanted to make sure she was getting the credit for every present. She later told me, no, that wasn't a sweet story to tell you, that, oh, Santa's going to go to other. No, she's like, I'm not giving somebody else credit for the gifts that I
need to do that with the Greek accent, John. You need to do your mom with the Greek.
My mom literally said the words, Santa Claus only go to poor children's homes.
Oh, I was broke.
Yep. Ios Vasilis.
I will say that I'm a huge Santa Claus person, so much so that for those of you that know that I don't have kids, but I do have my rescue pit mix, Bodie, who I love to death. And every Christmas, if you're following me on Facebook, you'll see it this year. Every Christmas, I do a video where I have him sit at the end of the hallway and wait until I tell him it's okay to come get his gifts. And then he has all these gifts under the tree, and he comes and picks out the one that he wants for that morning. So I'm still keeping it alive, even though I don't have kids. I'm still keeping this, and it's for me and for him because I love it. And I love to believe, in the idea of Santa Claus. And I love that holiday. And what?
The idea. You're going right there with her. So I have a 12-year-old, and she's on the cusp right now where friends are beginning to not believe. Right? And I think it's funny that it's taken this long because I thought that, given the world we live in, the more jaded kids are both more innocent and less innocent than we were.
Yeah.
But the Google exists. Now, if you go into Google, if you ask Siri, if you ask Alexa, if you do these things and ask if Santa's real, that's why I still believe you're going to have a very difficult time coming up with proof to the contrary. Yes. Those sources will tell you that, of course, Santa's real. And I mean, so there's that. But, she goes to me last year, and I don't know how she feels this year. We'll have to wait and see. But she goes, well, Bob, I went to school and kids asked me if I believed in Santa Claus. And I'm like, okay. She goes, and I told them no. And then she started crying. I go, what's wrong? She's like, I do. I just didn't want them to make fun of me. And I hope he didn't hear me.
Oh, that's so sweet. But that's what I'm talking about. It's that there's that moment when your heart just, as a parent, it breaks, and your child, you have that thing. You don't want to say it. And then I had a year where I told my parents, and then I was so sad that I did because I thought I disappointed my parents in the great gift that they had given me of the spirit of Christmas. So. Yeah.
My oldest came to us at one point and said, I know there's not. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course there is. And my wife, who is the more pragmatic of us, kind of gave into it. And she locked herself in the bathroom crying. I didn't think you would agree. And I'm like, I didn't agree. That was your mother. I
Yeah.
never said anything of the kind. I'm like, just to be clear, that was her. And to this day, those words will never come out of my mouth. There's no reason for it to. Santa Claus is everything that's good in this world. There is magic in this world. All joking aside, there's magic in this world if you choose to see it. And nobody can tell me that there's not. It just depends on if you want to see it. I can't quantify it. I can't describe it. I can't explain it. I'm not saying it's a religious thing. I'm just saying that there is this magic out there in the world if you want to allow it. And I choose to continue to allow it.
Yeah, it's more fun to believe. I mean, even if it's not reality, it's more fun to believe. And Michelle said the spirit of Christmas lives on forever. And that's, part of the idea of Santa Claus. And I think if you look at the I don't know, the imaginary people that we create for our kids and our youth, to me, Santa Claus feels the most believable. I mean, I know he has to get around the whole world and drop presents off, but the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, a massive rabbit running around, I don't know. Like, to me,
I'll give you the Easter
Santa
Bunny.
Claus feels the most believable.
Yeah, I'll give you the Easter Bunny, but I have no problem in believing that this spirit goes around once a year and gives good throughout the world. I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and it is, it is true for kids. There is somebody, for a lot of kids, not all kids, and that, that's the sad part too, but that there is somebody in their lives that loves them enough to perpetuate something beautiful to believe in like that.
Yeah.
And, I do respect that.
And it's, I think about the movies that have been made that center around Santa Claus versus any other one of these holiday, I don't know what we're going to call them, mascots or whatever. I mean, it's not even close. And some of those are the most classic movies of our generation. I mean, A Christmas Story, You'll Shoot Your Eye Out, Kid. I mean, that entire scene about, the Santa Claus, obviously Elf, Christmas Vacation, that you start to go down the list. I mean, well before us and through the years. And then of course you've got all the classic old, is it Rankin? What is the old,
It's Rankin.
Yeah. Santa Claus is coming to town. And I mean, The Year Without a Santa Claus, the Pete Miser, and I mean, Mr. Green Christmas.
I love those. I love the ones that explain the mythos of Santa Claus. So you get to have all the that's why they hang their stockings, and he met the Kringles, and it explains all that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love that. My favorite Christmas movies are the ones that actually speak to my beliefs that Santa is real. Where you've got Miracle on 34th. I keep wanting to say 32nd.
34th. I was going to say it. Yes.
Yes. And even though it's so funny because I'll always say the original and then the new one. And the new one is like 40 years old right now. So the new one's not even a new one anymore. The new one is freaking old as hell. Mm-hmm. But they both took a different take on it. One just explained it one way and one explained the other. And both were valid legal reasons why Santa Claus cannot be proven to not exist. Mm-hmm. And I'll sit with my daughter and we'll watch that. We'll watch a new Christmas classic, which again isn't new anymore, but Polar Express. We watch it
every year.
Yeah. I love that movie.
Every year we watch it.
Santa Claus is great too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, somebody just mentioned the Santa Claus.
Yeah,
explains perfectly. Yeah.
I mean, you keep going back and saying when you find out, I just want to be very clear to all the children that are listening on their parents' phones. Rochelle's just a little touched. She speaks sometimes without thinking. Of course, Santa's real. Yes. She just chooses not to believe, but that's okay. But those of us that do believe will still get presents. Rochelle, did you get anything good for Christmas last year?
Lump of coal.
See? There it is. That's all you need to know. So please do not take this as meaning anything other than it's just differences of opinion.
Yeah.
She's a very, very, very mean old woman with a dark, dark heart.
She's a demon in disguise.
I was going to tell you to change the topic. I was this close.
Really? Why?
Because I didn't want you to say the things you're saying.
Really? You think kids are watching a Gen X
I know one that's
podcast?
probably listening downstairs.
Oh.
Well, let me say this about Santa Claus, because somebody mentioned it, kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in the chat. I think it was Michelle. He's real in each of us in our own way of giving. And I think that's what, like, for Santa Claus, that's what it means. And John touched on it earlier too. Like, it's a magical time of year. It's when everybody, I wish that everybody would continue to set their differences aside just for a few weeks and embrace that time. And then there's, yeah, Rachel's on the naughty list. Yep. We've all been there, I think.
I'm getting
it's a magical time
for Christmas. Johnny and Chris are mad.
I will say, when we're talking about heroes, the other heroes in all of this, though, are like the people who support Santa Claus. Not just the mall Santas. I was a mall Santa in my small town. We needed somebody didn't show up, so I put on the suit. Unless you've been that person that supports Santa in that role and have a little kid on your lap, that's incredible. I don't know if you've ever done it, Chris. It is an amazing feeling to have that little kid look like I've got my own kids. I've got a dog that looks up at me, and I walk home and he gives me this look that I wish my kids would look at me that way. But all of that pales in comparison to you putting on that suit and putting on that beard and standing in for Santa. And those kids, it's awesome. It's amazing. And a lot of us do it just volunteer. It's just because.
Santa Claus. Yeah.
He's as much of a hero.
He's as good as it gets.
He's a hero as much as any football player or, anything else. Yeah, absolutely.
And somebody mentioned Bad Santa in the chat. And I just want to say, maybe this is just me, but because I love Santa Claus so much and I love the idea of the Christmas holiday and all the spirit and the magic, the word that's been thrown out there, I really I've got a pretty snarky sense of humor, but I really had no interest in Bad Santa because I feel like there are some characters, whatever you want to call them, that should just be left alone. And when I saw Silent Night, Deadly Night with a Christmas, Santa Claus killer, and then Bad Santa, I don't know. For me, I just call me whatever, but prudish. I don't care. I just feel like there are some rails that shouldn't be touched, and Santa Claus is one of them in terms of changing the concept of him.
Yeah.
Ashley asks if I ever had any special needs kids come up to us as Santa. And the answer is yeah. But I think even more, that's the other thing about it. We start to see store Santa Clauses that when we grew up, there was no black store Santa Claus. It all had the same image. I love the fact that every kid can go now and see their interpretation of Santa Claus. I grew up, it wasn't even Santa Claus. Ios Vasilis was the Greek version of it. And he looked a little different. So I love that part of it, that it can all be different. But, kids with disabilities, I think even special needs children, all of that is amazing because Santa doesn't differentiate. Mm-hmm. It's just, Santa is Santa for everybody, young and old alike, Rochelle.
Yeah.
If you leave room in your heart for him, he will come back.
Yeah.
You can hear the bell again, I promise.
Wait, for anybody listening that knows what a cynic is, I'm so sorry that I doubted at this moment. I thought it would be a great podcast topic, but clearly I'm wrong because there are young people who are listening, and I have to admit when I'm wrong.
There you go.
Too little, too late.
And Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
100% is a Christmas
100%.
movie.
100%.
I mean, the very first scene, you have Christmas in Hollis, one of the greatest Christmas carols of all time, at least of our generation, from Run DMC. It's absolutely a Christmas movie. Can I point out one more thing? Because I think we're going to wrap up here.
You always come in last.
What's that?
I said, I love how you always come in last. You're like, one more thing.
Yeah, I just, maybe that'll be my little thing. One more thing.
No, it's okay.
So in the spirit of Christmas, there are so many things that all of us can do that are fortunate enough to be able to do it. And something that I did that I thought I would just kind of do quietly but the general manager asked me if I wanted to call the person and tell them, which I thought was pretty cool. But I went to a local Walmart and I looked. I had said I want to pay off somebody's layover, or not layover. Sorry, layaway, and for Christmas. But I said I want one where it's like they started this in like May or June, like legitimately trying to do something as simple as a bike, like something like that. And so I found this one that this family in May had started putting money away to get their 3 kids bikes and a couple of other things. And it was 2 weeks before Christmas, and they're only a third of the way there. And so I said, I'm going to pay it off. And the general manager's like, do you want to call them? And I'm like, no. And he's like, you might want to do that and just let them know. It was the most incredible, like to John's point about playing Santa, being Santa Claus for me, because I take that for granted. And not to say that I'm a wealthy guy by any stretch of the imagination, but the idea that I wouldn't be able to get bikes for my kids at Christmas and being 2 weeks away and not having that, knowing that I'm going to have to tell my kids, sorry, and that you can fill that gap for somebody it's really like, that's the spirit of it. It's too bad we don't do that 12 months out of the year. Some people do, but that's the spirit of it. So if you have an opportunity and you're fortunate enough to be able to do something around that time, it's a great thing to do, to go to some of these stores who have layaway and, make sure you're picking one that looks like somebody's been working at it really hard for 6 or 7 months and say, listen, I want to take care of that.
I will add one more thing before we finish. This is your story. It touched me and it made me remember why my oldest daughter struggled with mental health, different times in her life, depression and anxiety, and just really struggled with the perception that when she missed school because of it, she got pushback from teachers and everybody. And she's like, they're not giving me any space. I don't understand because I was sick. And I'm like, yes, honey, but they don't see it the same way. If you were out of school getting chemo, they'd all be falling over backwards, as they should, to support you. If you had pneumonia, if you had mono that took you out for a month, if you were sick, they would be doing all kinds of things to bend over backwards. What you need to understand is you were ill and you took the time to take the medicine and to do the things you needed to do to get better. And whether they see it or understand it or not, I don't give a damn. So that was the precursor. The result of this was she did get stronger. She did get better. She started thriving. And at Christmas, she decided she wanted to do a toy drive for kids. But she didn't pick Levine Children's Hospital or any of the traditional. We have a mental health crisis emergency department here in Charlotte. And she wanted to get toys and gifts and things for kids that were suffering from mental illness. And when we dropped off all those toys for those kids, it was amazing, because when I tell you they are completely forgotten, no one's ever done a toy drive for them. No one's ever done anything for their sickness, for their illness, it was amazing. And I got to see my daughter I think she was 16 at the time, 17, play Santa Claus and round up her friends. It was an amazing moment for me. And just to move on to the topic of heroes, my daughter became my hero in that moment.
Oh, that is so sweet. That is, I just, yeah. I mean, I have stories like that too, but for the sake of time, we can probably talk about Santa Claus, and I'm going to wrap this up really well for you when we get to, and heal the wounds. Apparently, that I'm just,
hey, no wounds here. I know what's real and what's not. I'm good.
I'm telling you, this is all going to wrap up with a nice, pretty bow on it. I didn't.
Are you telling us you're ready to transition to the reveal?
I'm ready to transition.
All right.
To the
well,
reveal.
I mean, I've got thoughts. I'm sure our chat room has thoughts. Last week I started with our chat room. The week before, I think, was Chris. I'm going to let you go. What are you thinking?
Well, the 3 topics, in case anybody just joined us, was natural born killers, and Mean Joe Green, and Santa Claus. And we will wrap this up with a bow here at the end.
So does anybody in the chat, before we start to chime in with ours, have any ideas about what how the 3 topics connect?
Yeah.
I don't see anything. No? Last call?
All right. Chris, what do you got?
I don't know, my most like common sense kind of, I don't know. I would say heroes. Maybe they're all heroes in different ways. Uh, I don't know, like kind of said that at the beginning with the Natural Born Killers, how they were heroes, even though different types of
Anti-heroes.
heroes. Anti-hero, yeah.
Mhm.
So that was the only thing that came to mind for me, was connecting the three with heroes. Because I don't think Mean Joe Green was in Natural Born Killers, and neither was Santa Claus. So
No. So the only thing I thought heroes as well, and kind of led that throughout all of it, and it's kind of how it framed the entire discussion for me. But then I started thinking about, well, Santa Claus, and Santa Claus goes around the entire world giving gifts, giving things to people. And Mean Joe Green, of course, gave the kid literally the shirt off his back as a gift. And then with Natural Born Killers, I mean, God knows they gave people what they deserved, what they had coming.
A gift, the gift of death. I guess.
Well, but you had it coming. Here's the day you deserved, jackass.
Here's the day you deserve. Yeah. It's a lot. I love your thinking in both of these, but it's a lot simpler than that. You mentioned it before. In fact, we had an entire conversation about it when we were talking about Mean Joe Green.
Okay. I was going to say,
Yeah.
is it legend, myth?
No.
Because they were both all larger.
nicknames.
No. And in the movie,
Rochelle hating Santa Claus.
in the movie Natural Born not Unspoken Heroes, it's actually a little bit it's just simpler than that. In the movie Natural Born Killers was one of the very first movies, not first, I shouldn't say first. It was one of the movies that changed the way the product placements were put inside of movies. Can you remember the product placement that was obvious and weirdly part of the Natural Born Killers? There was an odd product placement in that movie. And if you know the movie, you can picture it. No?
I mean, it must be Coca-Cola, because
The Coca-Cola polar bears.
yeah.
Okay, remember the Coca-Cola polar bears? The movie would just stop, and then they would show the Coca-Cola polar bears right inside of Natural Born Killers.
Oh.
You don't remember that?
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Okay, well, I guess, then the connection obviously wouldn't be gotten. But they stopped it right in the middle, and they would show the Coca-Cola polar bears. And when they first, Coca-Cola agreed to this, because Coca-Cola had to say, hey, you can go ahead and put the famous polar bears right inside of the movie, because the movie just stopped and there it was. And it did it 3 to 4 times throughout the movie, because the movie was choppy and it didn't in some ways make sense.
It's Tarantino.
So when Coke agreed to this, and then they finally saw the movie, Coke said, yeah, we're not, like, we didn't like that. And there on after, product placement in movies became more of a discussion, a back and forth discussion, because they didn't like how Coca-Cola was portrayed. And of course we have with Mean Joe Green, the Coca-Cola commercial. And where I was getting with Santa Claus not being real is the image of Santa Claus as the classic red and white character, not St. Nicholas, not the man that actually existed, okay? And not the gift of the past from St. Nicholas. The classic red and white came from a lot of Coca-Cola's early advertising of what Santa Claus and their picture of what Santa Claus should look like. So the curly beard, the long white beard, the red hat, all of that actually came from Coca-Cola.
And Santa Claus was in a Coca-Cola commercial.
Well, of course. But the classic pairings, if you go back and you look, I mean, Santa Claus had been starting to transform. If you've ever looked at actual Santa Claus, the Santa Claus that is real, John, real, he started one way, and in different cultures looks different ways. He started one way.
Different names.
He had a long coat. He had a different beard. He had everything. But who's the Santa Claus that we know now? The picture of Santa Claus is always of the classic curly white beard and the red hat, but that wasn't the way it was 100 years ago. Santa, who existed and has always existed, looked different.
So the connection is
Right.
Coca-Cola?
Coca-Cola.
Okay. All right. I like it. I mean, I know, like, if you go back and you look at the old Coca-Cola merchandise, you see Santa Claus
A lot.
But I always thought of just Santa Claus in the more modern day Coca-Cola commercials.
Well, and it's funny because you said Saint Nicholas, but in Greek it's Ios Vasilis, which is Saint Bill,
Okay.
Saint William.
You say,
Yeah,
William.
well, Vasilis Bill, William, just a different saint altogether. So it is what it is. You try to dig yourself out of your hole. Next thing you know,
No, Santa
Chris will
used
be
to
saying
bring
that he in
greens.
fact
Santa
does
had
not
flowers.
like.
Santa had flowers. Santa filled Dutch shoes, outside in the stockings. There are so many things about it that are absolutely part of that. But the modern day
You said the words when you stopped.
myth of the reality of Santa as the red and white mall Santa
I love
really
it.
started a lot with Coca-Cola's advertising.
Love it, love it, love it.
I didn't know that about the colors. It absolutely
Oh,
makes
frozen
sense. But I had no idea. I guess that makes sense because the more modern Santa Claus, like to your point, Saint Nicholas goes way back. And
Yes.
in fact, I had a friend who was German growing up, and I was at his house. I think it was December 5th. It's like Saint Nick night. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but you leave your shoe out in front of your bedroom, and it's filled with candy.
The Dutch.
What's that?
The Dutch. Yeah.
The Dutch.
Yeah, but it's German as well, I think.
Well, Dutch, German, yeah.
I
Yeah.
have my husband's aunt, and I know this because she has an obsession with Santa Claus. She loves Santa Claus. And she has a collection of Santas that are through different cultures and different periods of time, that Santa looked very different way back in the day. But advertising made Santa the classic red and white Santa.
Well, what I love about it is the one thing that I once read is that it's not that Santa appears different in different cultures, it's that everyone sees him differently. So when you look up, if you were to see Santa Claus, he would look different to you than he does to me. So everybody describing this different person in this different, it's all based on our perceptions of him. And that's what's cool about it. I think everybody sees Santa Claus differently. Hey, baby.
Yes.
We're talking about Santa Claus on our podcast, believe it or not.
Hi.
Hello.
I came back from tryouts.
Can you give me 10 minutes to wrap up and I'll
Yep.
chat to you about it? She had volleyball tryouts today.
Oh, awesome.
For
Did
school.
she make it?
I don't know yet. That's what we're going to find out.
Well, Monday.
Did you get call back?
That's either tonight or Saturday.
So you don't know yet?
No,
How'd you do?
I think I did really good.
Well, that's what matters.
Yeah,
All right. Give me a kiss. I love you.
love you.
Well, I think that's a cool connection, and not one that I.
Try. I didn't know I'd have to. I was always going to say that. That was always the thing, but I didn't know I'd have to justify it so much. But about the things.
And Ashley says, just like everyone has a different look for God. And that's the only other thing I wanted to say is we run into trouble because a lot of people, their issue with Santa Claus, so to speak, is that it usurps the image of what they feel is the real meaning of Christmas. And I get that. But it doesn't have to be one or the other, in my opinion. It can be both. But yes, Ashley, 1,000%. And I think it's true for a lot of things in our lives. Even you can take it so far as to say that metaphorically, the world we look at, if we remember the reason we disagree as people is because the world we see looks different to each of us based on our perceptions. It doesn't make us bad. It doesn't mean we have to dislike each other or hate one another. It just means that the lives we led have created different perceptions for each of us, which is why, as we look back in the three view mirror while driving forward, we bring back that ability to disagree, to say, I believe and she doesn't, and still be good friends.
Yeah.
I know.
That's it for me.
That's it for me.
Yeah,
Did our audience? Did you like the connection? Did you like the connection though? Coca-Cola being the connection between them.
and if you're here for the first time, What did you think about the idea, the format, and does it make sense? You know, this idea of connecting these 3 topics, does it keep you engaged? Did you enjoy it? I think we had a couple people here, maybe the first time. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even those that are watching it after the live, because the live will always be here after the fact. We post it as it was, unedited. Sorry, Shell, there's no editing that's going to save you on this one. Uncensored, unedited, raw. It is
I
what
had
it is.
so many little things that I wanted to say, and then you guys just caught me in a moment where I didn't say it right. Principal Vernon.
All right. Well, let us know what y'all think. We hope to see you again next week. Same time, right around 5:30 Friday, assuming all things tech work, we should be on. Sometimes we're a little delayed getting all the balls to go in the same direction and not drop any. But we'll be here 5:30 next Friday, and bring a friend next week.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace. See ya.
later. Bye.